Welcome to the Rehab Remix.
Where we break down the hottest topics in ortho and neuro PT to help you elevate your clinical game. We're your hosts, Dr. Lauren Tighe
And Dr. Lauren Young, bringing you practical insights straight from the evidence to your earbuds. Welcome back, y'all. It's another week of the Rehab Remix. Dr. Tighe and I are here this week to chat, and then we have a special guest coming next week on our show to talk a little bit more about concussion. And then we really just want to roll into what does this look like in an insurance-driven model? What does this look like in a not insurance-driven model? So we're excited to just let you know our thoughts today.
Yeah, so welcome back, everybody. We are wrapping up our discussions on concussion rehab. And like Dr. Young said, we have a really special guest coming over the next couple of weeks to chat with us more about it. But I think where we should start is before we get into concussion, let's talk about football, because football is really relative to concussions, right? And Dr. Young and I kind of are on like two sides of the swords here. So just to let everybody know, grew up a Cowboys fan and I married a diehard Bills fan. And so I have really taken to Josh Allen as a person, I would say, is really where I've been like for a long time. And so today we are repping our teams at the moment. And as you can see here, Buffalo Bills are the winner's circle. And then we have the Kansas City Chiefs.
The Chiefs.
So I think this is just a good time for us to continue talking about concussions because it's something that we see a lot, especially in contact sports, especially in professional contact sports, and it is football season. So we are likely going to see more of it on live television. So to begin our conversations today, we wanted to really highlight this opportunity to seek out rehab earlier than what we typically would previously before current evidence and research has come about. So the importance of seeking out early initiation of PT rehab is so important. And where the models of insurance versus cash-based or out-of-network PT models comes into play here is because when some injury occurs, whether it's a concussion, whether it's any injury whatsoever, there is a waiting period between going to the doctor, getting a referral, then getting into a PT clinic. That can be upwards to 60 days that can take. Whether you're getting imaging in there is also going to delay that time period. And so we really just wanted to have a conversation about the options that we can advocate for our patients when they are suffering from a concussion or concussion-like symptoms, and really going through some of the benefits of both the in-network and out-of-network models. So Dr. Young, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think, I run a small private practice and it's an out-of-network practice. Dr. Tighe does as well. I can say I'm a low volume, high quality clinic. Someone can call me today and I can get them in within the next 2 or 3 days. That is the beauty of my model. And I've had multiple people call me even within the last week and say, I called an insurance-based therapy clinic and it's going to take 2 weeks for me to even get in for an evaluation. So I think you can do this in either an in-network or out-of-network model. The issue is the in-network model still kind of comprises this traditional healthcare system. So we're thinking if this person, and I know we're talking about sports, but it could be a fall, it could be a motor vehicle accident. They're going to go to the ER. They're going to get told, okay, you have a concussion. They're going to send you to a general practitioner. That general practitioner is dependent on how versed they are with the literature. They're going to either tell the person to rest, or the hope is they send them to PT. A lot of times, and what this article talks about is a lot of times general practitioners aren't sending to PT until the person in front of them is having prolonged symptoms, so greater than 4 weeks or so. Well, at that point, we've really missed an opportunity to help with the neuroplasticities. I think you can do this in either model. Sometimes, if you're going to do it and I've seen it done in the traditional insurance-based model, you just have to have extremely strong connections with referring providers, and then a program or a therapist who's set up where their schedule remains open, or they have a few hours a week that is dedicated to being able to see this person that comes in with a concussion. That way, the flow is there. They don't have to wait 2 weeks to get into this therapy. I think that is a way I've seen traditional clinics do it, but that's hard. We talk about, I will not get on my soapbox, but we talk about reimbursement in PT. And to have an open block is a time where you could be seeing someone who is going to be paying for their session versus leaving it open and hoping that someone who's had a concussion can fill that spot. So there's pros and cons. It's the same thing in an out of network clinic, except out of network clinics tend to have a little lower volume. So there are opportunities to at least get that person seen, because once they're seen, you can start giving a home exercise program and start rolling into those next steps. Even education that sitting and resting isn't what we recommend can be really, really powerful and really beneficial to that person who's experiencing the concussion.
Yeah, and I think you bring up a good point, and we've talked about it in previous episodes about the evidence out there now that really does encourage early activity. So waiting 4 weeks until you get that referral, until you get that imaging, until you get into that PT clinic, it can really actually move and transition into post-concussion syndrome. If you are not addressing those symptoms head on and early, that's where post-concussion symptoms really tend to evolve. So I think that's really important. And the other thing to think about is more of that out of network model or that concierge type of PT service. A lot of times, yes, these clinicians may be considered generalists, but some of them are really specialists in their trade. And that is really what one of our guests is going to talk about after this episode in the next couple of weeks, is just being able to provide that specialized care. And so we're kind of working backwards in that sense of if we're going the out of network route, and then maybe we go into the in network route, right? So having those conversations with our patients about the importance of early intervention and early initiation of PT rehab and the importance of that, and letting your patients understand and know that when they see you, it is a one-on-one 60-minute session, nobody else, and everything that you're doing is curated specifically to that patient. And that's not to say that that's not happening in the in-network or insurance-based model. But what that is to say is that if you get that early on, that is really going to catapult positive prognosis and positive outcomes for that person who is suffering from a concussion. And again, there's some research that our next guest, and his name is Dr. Alex Peters, he is going to reference a couple of different articles about how early initiation of PT rehab can make a world of difference in terms of prognosis and outcomes, and especially on our younger athletes when it comes to emotional regulation, because that is something that when we think about, and Dr. Young can definitely speak to this a lot more than I can because neuro is not my niche, ortho really is, but I see a lot of these sports concussions. But on the flip side of that, this emotional regulation is something that really does ebb and flow with post-concussion symptoms. So thinking about when a athlete feels maybe depressed one day, they're not really sure why, but they just recently suffered from a concussion, or they're feeling really irritable, or they're feeling overly happy. There's just kind of like this roller coaster of different emotions that they're going through. And it could be influenced by a lot of things, but we do know that after a mild traumatic brain injury, that emotional dysregulation is a symptom. So I don't know, Dr. Young, if you want to speak to that a little bit more.
Yeah, I think a big thing here, and I talk about this with any of my patients who've had either a mild traumatic brain injury, a moderate, severe, a stroke. The brain chemistry changes when it's damaged at a cellular and molecular level. We are releasing different neurotransmitters that are either positively or negatively impacting the system. Most likely, it is negatively impacting the system. Although with some neurotransmitters, you may have an overactivity, which is creating this feeling of like euphoria or that ultra high that some people might report. So when that happens, I talk to everyone about the fact that it's not something that we can heal on our own. It's not really like a broken bone. You put a cast on it, it fixes itself. Sometimes in the early stages, you might need some medication management to level out those neurotransmitters that you might need, again, earlier intervention to start improving, helping uptake some of these neurotransmitters that are outside of their cellular environment to be able to better regulate this experience that you're having. I think the other thing to say is this can be anxiety provoking. So, not only is the brain chemistry altered, now you're dealing with something, and the layperson just doesn't know the evidence like SPTs know the evidence. It says this article quotes that 30% of people who have a concussion are going to have symptoms longer than 4 weeks. So it's not a huge number, but if you're in that 30%, it's going to feel like your whole life has changed. So, that being said, these people might be experiencing dizziness. If you've ever been dizzy, you know that's anxiety provoking. They just might have a change in their job status or their ability to care for someone in their family. So that's bringing on other emotional issues. So I think, again, it takes this approach of we have to look at the person as a whole. We have to go back to the ICF model. I know, we hate it, but it really is helpful because there are environmental and personal factors that are going to influence this person's healing. And Dr. Tig made a great point, and I think this is something how at least I utilize traditional insurance in conjunction with my out of network is maybe the first 3 visits are with me until that person can get into an insurance-based clinic. So now the financial burden is 3 visits. They move into the traditional model once it's able or open or the availability of an appointment, whatever it might be. And then they carry out the care there. I know I use, like, of course, I'm seeing like a lot of like neurologic injury. So, like issues with functional mobility, not necessarily like a concussion based problem. But I have people who will go to insurance based therapy 3 times a week and then they see me either 1 or 2 times a week. That way they're getting more frequency. Now, with concussion rehab, maybe that looks a little different because sometimes frequency isn't great, especially if we're pushing over symptom threshold. So we have to be careful, right? But there is, I think, a beautiful way to improve access to care using both in network and out of network models. And concussion is a really nice way to do this. I think, Dr. Tig, I'd like you to maybe speak to that relationship because in the sports world, you have athletic trainers who work closely with PTs who also typically have a team doc around. That makes for a beautiful referral network because we all know what each other does. Can you speak to how that helps streamline the care that maybe somebody who's not in the sports world experiences?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that point is really critical to any and all rehab, specific to concussions from the standpoint of early initiation of rehab. And Dr. Young brought up like the close knit cyclic type of process that you have between PTs, athletic trainers, as well as team physicians, but also strength and conditioning coaches. So when somebody goes down with an injury, whether that's concussion or any sport related injury, it is a medical team, right? So if I'm working in an outpatient clinic that is offset from a university or a high school campus, I am constantly in contact with that athletic trainer because that athlete is still going to school. They're still going to their classes at their university. They're still seeing that athletic trainer every single day. And to Dr. Young's point, they're not seeing me as often, whether that is from an out of network model or a traditional insurance based model. So it is really, really important to maintain contact with the athletic trainer. And once you do that, and if you are somebody who wants to work in sports, I highly, highly encourage you to pick up the phone and have conversations with not only the referring physicians, but also the athletic trainers. Because once you build that rapport with the athletic trainers, you are going to see that come back and pay back tenfold, not only in your referrals, but your consistency in collaboration with those referring docs and those athletic trainers. But also, you're going to see that in your patient or your athlete's progress. So, the times that we are not having those conversations daily, every other day, weekly, updating each other, that's when you're not seeing the progress in your athletes or your patients. And I think that is a huge, huge barrier to some care that we see or re-injury risks or re-injury rates, if you will, because it's really, really important. And the flip side of that is when you are working in a in-network or insurance model type of traditional model of PT, oftentimes we are limited by the number of visits that an insurance policy allots for that patient. So a lot of times as PTs, we will bridge the gap with athletic trainers as well as strength and conditioning coaches. So it's really important to have that open communication to make sure that we're all on the same page of saying, okay, Johnny's run out of visits. We've done 15 or 20 visits. We've really ran out of all of his insurance visits. We've asked for more. They're not approving them. So I'm going to have a conversation with the strength and conditioning coach and the athletic trainer, and I'm going to stay in constant contact with them because if they need additional support or they need additional updates to a program, I'm going to give it to them. However, the other side of that, the other side of the coin is if you are in an out of network model like I am, right? So I have a low volume service clinic, right? Which is okay. I'm okay with that because in this type of situation, I have colleagues who are athletic trainers, who are strength and conditioning coaches, or PTs in outpatient clinics that are the in network traditional model. They will call me and say, hey, I have a patient, I have an athlete who needs additional PT, but they're run out of visits. And I really want them to continue the PT side of things before they go to the full blown strength and conditioning route. And that is okay. Like that is where we really can step in and bridge that gap, whether we're working backwards and we're doing it first, or whether we're that bridging of the gap between ending outpatient in network model type of visits, getting into this private concierge type of PT practice, and then transitioning to strength and conditioning, solely athletic training, rehab based care. And I think that's really important. And that really all stems from relationship building and communication between all of your medical team.
And I understanding and being able to verbalize how we are different strength and conditioning coaches, how we are different from athletic trainers, how we are different from personal trainers. All of this stuff is really key because it's going to look like we're doing a lot of the same things. The problem is we have a doctorate degree in movement analysis. We are the movement analysis experts. And so, sure, you can go to a strength and conditioning coach and they know the strength and conditioning principles. But if you're looking at, is this person able to stabilize at the appropriate time? Are they able to activate this muscle when it needs to be active in, I don't know, let's say a throw, a cut, a run, whatever it may be? We are the people who are able to see that. And we have the education to be able to do that. So I think this is something that I struggled with as I moved into the out of network realm is, people would say, well, why can't I just go to this person down the street? They do the same thing as you. And I had to explain, it may look like they're doing the same thing as me, but I have so much more that I'm taking in based on the quality of their movement and the way they're choosing to move and what muscle is active and what phase of that contraction is most beneficial. We just have so much knowledge that I think if you're good at what you do, nobody ever knows.
Yeah.
And so being able to articulate that, if this is a realm that you want to go into, being able to articulate that to people around you to justify why they should use you over using another fitness professional, or maybe why we should be working all together to be
Right.
able to do that. Because, I'm biased, but I think that we are the people who should be seeing anyone, the general public, for movement to a certain extent. Of course, there's always exceptions and there's always circumstances where I may pass off to another practitioner. But for the most part, I think we are very good at what we do as PTs and we just need to embrace that, but then also know how to articulate it because I think we're another profession who likes to live under the radar. We don't like to talk about what we're good at and how we can benefit. And I think that actually hurts us as a profession. So I love this conversation. I'm so excited to have our listeners hear what Dr. Alex Peters has to say. Dr. Tig, any final thoughts?
I think the only thing I would say is just echoing what Dr. Young just said. It's not this idea of just staying in your lane. It's recognizing what your lane and expertise is and being willing to share that and collaborate with others, because that's how you're really going to see that continuum and full circle of care. And that is how we treat the individual as a whole person versus just by their diagnosis or their injury. So yeah, thanks so much for joining us. We are so excited for our conversations with Dr. Alex Peters. So make sure to tune in next week, and we will see you next time.
Be sure to sign up for our newsletter linked in the show notes. You can find me, Dr. Young, on Instagram at NeuroElitePT. And Dr. Teig, where can they find you?
On Instagram as well at LTigDPT. Thanks for tuning in to the Rehab Remix, where you listen in and level up. We'll see you next time.